of alien bodies that they keep in waste storage containers buried deep underground, as well as other scary objects.
See, at this point, Marsh had been awake a very long time. And we were starting to speculate wildly, and we thought, but the reality is, obviously, the Department of Defense wouldn't get stuck in something like this, right?
So the DoD CAC, Common Access Card System, has 3.5 million active cards, 1 million active card readers, and it operates primarily based on client certificates. The system is used to access secure websites all across the military, and possibly other uses as well. Anything that could talk TLS is potentially pulling client certificates off of this smart card. Here's an example, just a quick search and clicking around on the web. I mean, this was no deep hacking. This is just clicking around on the web. Here's the U.S. Department of Defense military health system as an example of this mixed model client authentication environment. It's inviting you to log in with the Common Access Card, and it didn't ask for a client certificate when I pulled up the page initially. So it's got to be doing a renegotiation under the hood, and that's got to be vulnerable. And the real issue here is that in this database behind this web front end, are the personally identifying information of everybody who's ever taken a bullet or shrapnel for to defend this city. And I think that's probably worth trying to protect. These people are vulnerable right now, and it's not like their administrators did anything wrong to configure this site. That's not the only site. There are other publicly accessible URLs that require a client certificate. I mean, in this example, it shows that it's Microsoft IIS serving this, and IIS has the helpful behavior of doing a renegotiation anytime a client certificate is involved.
In other words, it can't possibly be configured, documentation notwithstanding, it can't possibly be configured not to renegotiate.
These people have to have a patch. Maybe we could hope that these systems all fall under physical security, that the CAC card is only accepted for websites on, say, a base where the IS department strictly controls access. Well, here's an example of a project where they're inviting you to download a CD-ROM and boot from it to give the system some clean image and not save anything to the hard drive. That then, if you could read this text, it says it turns an untrusted system, such as your home computer, into a trusted network client, and plug in your USB reader to access CAC-protected DoD websites. Now, we should also tell these people that they should probably protect the ISO download with HTTPS as well.
All right. So, we had a lot of interesting conversations about this and realized over a period of time that this was going to need a coordinated effort to fix. Actually, that's not entirely true. Marsh, I think, realized it was going to need a coordinated effort in about 5 seconds of inspiration, and it took a couple days to talk me into it. But
so it's a protocol level problem, and the only way to fix it is to patch all the web servers and all of the clients in the world. So we weren't ambitious about it at all, but.
Exactly. So the deal here, of course, then is because of all the people that would have to be involved, this thing was virtually guaranteed to leak out at some point. On the flip side, we wanted to engineer a disclosure where there was a near simultaneous disclosure to all the affected parties for a bunch of reasons. One of them is that there's an interesting sort of tension between some of the vendors that are affected here. Like, for example, Apache and IIS are fighting for market share, and one's the most popular web server on the internet, and the other's got more business pages. I don't know. Anyway, you can imagine an open source project shipping a fix and then saying, hey, this is why you should be using open source.
We expected the open source projects would all have a patch within hours and leap the vendors by months.
Exactly.
We expected that.
So at any rate, and then there's some other really interesting things, like, for example, IBM is heavily dependent on Java. So they're shipping components from Sun and from the Apache project, which then are in turn dependent on other open source projects. IBM is directly dependent on OpenSSL, so you can't just kind of disclose to the world and then leave IBM waiting for, or can you, for weeks while the OpenSSL patches. So at any rate, we decided we wanted everybody to kind of find out about this all at once. And ideally, we wanted to have as many computers able to be protected and patched, with a workable solution before the thing leaked out or was publicly disclosed.
To try to minimize the number of vulnerable systems over time. That was the only objective metric I could come up with that we could have as a goal to try to minimize. And the hope, we knew that it would leak eventually, so we wanted to go directly to the people who actually own the code or the specification documents that would need to be changed in order to roll this out as a solution.
So we needed a project.
Project Mogul.
And we named it Project Mogul. And by we, I mean Marsh. He told me he always wanted to be involved in something named Project Mogul.
Since I was a kid.
Well.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, okay, for those who didn't know, Project Mogul is a Cold War Air Force project where they sent up these high altitude weather balloons for something very secret. And they were the cause of all those UFO sightings.
Exactly. So at any rate, I hated the name, and that didn't matter, apparently, so we used it.
So as the first decision of naming the project as part of the project,
yes,
it
turns out that Jeff Mogul is the third author listed on the HTTP 1.1 spec. I did not know this.
I checked Wikipedia, and
the
you know
project got off to a good start.
I checked Wikipedia. The Moguls died out hundreds of years ago. I thought the name was free.
Anyway, namespace collision, day one. All right, so we decided we wanted a disclosure plan, four basic phases. The idea was to first find what it was characterized to me as, I needed to find the gray beards and tribal elders of the data security world. So,
I think some of them are here.
Indeed, many of them are here. And disclose to some selected people first to kind of find out if we were nuts, working repro notwithstanding, and then to kind of pull together a small group of actual SSL implementation owners, code owners, and ideally start working forward towards a fix. And then over time, widen the circle, right? So start with it, maybe OpenSSL, pull in Apache, pull in Tomcat, I don't know, and keep sort of diffusing outwards, and hope for, at the end of it all, a controlled public disclosure.
And even if it leaked before that, hopefully we could be as far down the path as possible towards having a deployable patch that went at the point where it did become public.
So I've already gotten at least one comment from the audience on this before the slide even came up. One of the things that we we are full disclosure guys at heart, but this seemed like an odd case with being a pretty being an SSL bug and a protocol bug.
So we necessarily had to get people on both the client end and the server end to agree on the solution as a protocol change, and that was going to have to take time.
Right. So we decided we wanted an NDA, and universally we're laughed at over it, and. Right up until the point where we disclosed the flaw.
Microsoft and Google actually did not laugh at us. They were very enthusiastic about signing an NDA with us, and that was not part of the problem.
That's true. There we go. All right, so at any rate, the other thing is we obviously wanted to put pressure on vendors to make forward progress because we didn't think it was fair to keep the open source community sitting on something for a long period of time when just to kowtow to vendors, commercial vendors. And so we wrote the NDA to expire at the end of January. So that was like 5 months, I think, 4.5 months or something from the time that we disclosed this to the group that we did. And, some people said, hey, I don't want to sit on this thing for 3.5 months longer than I need to.
The first bit of advice that everybody we talked to universally gave us about this disclosure process was, don't end up like Dan Kaminsky. Is he here? Guess he didn't make it. Well, yeah. It turned out, we picked this day, January 31st. It was my fault. I thought Black Hat was had just happened. I didn't realize it was twice a year at this point.
There you go. Here's a question we got a couple of times. Why didn't you just go to cert.org, let them know? So I went and took a screenshot, and there's this nice little box here. It says, please type your vulnerability here. And thank you, and we'll handle it from here.
Well, with this thing, we didn't have any idea to judge how many people we're going to end up knowing before the news actually got to the guy who could change the code or
Exactly.
work on a spec change. And then I came across this cool document on their site. Malicious insiders with ties to the Internet Underground community. Do we have any members of the Internet Underground community with us tonight?
Do any of you have hacker aliases?
Any of you use IRC channels to communicate back and forth with one another?
Anyway.
That's right.
That was the next line. I cut the quote too early. All right, so I'd known Frank Haidt for a few years, and I thought he was, I trusted him to get some advice from him. So we gave him a call about this, and he confirmed our intuition.
The city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together.
Yeah, so Frank, and literally, the wrath of God stuff is a word-for-word quote from Frank. Okay, so at any rate, Frank's wife wasn't pleased with us because of the smoking again thing. At any rate, he basically put us in touch pretty quickly with some people for some peer review. So the first call I think we made was to John Callis. Thank you, John.
Who offered us some wise guidance.
After telling Marsh that he was an idiot to post in SHA-1. And the next call we made was to Ben Laurie, and Ben, of course, is an OpenSSL maintainer and an Apache project member. Dan Gear, because of his longtime involvement with Kerberos, of course. And finally, spent some time on the phone with Jennifer Granick on a number of occasions over at the EFF. She's an attorney who has more experience, at least, than anybody else I know of in handling these kinds of things.
She gave us some good bits of advice as vulnerability disclosers.
Indeed. So we thought we needed a disclosure plan, and it turned out we needed several. And that one aspect of the plan is probably the thing that was the most important in the end. We revved this plan over, repeatedly over nice long conversations.
The best part of these plans were that we were throwing them away regularly.
Exactly.
And trying to keep the project flexible.
So plan A, which looks ridiculous in hindsight, was we were going to get all the code owners together, and by all we meant like 5 or 10 tops, all together in one room, tell everybody all at once after we got an NDA, and that was going to be, and then we were going to work on a solution.
We thought that if we came up with a technical document that described the vulnerability in enough detail and presented the actual severity of it, at least what we knew about it, we could motivate the vendors to get the right engineers on the plane without us actually giving them the details ahead of time.
So that didn't work. It turns out, for a variety of reasons, that we needed support people, and so Plan B was inform as few other people as possible, and that still didn't work because people, for some reason, didn't want to take our word for it that this was that this was a severe bug before they put their top engineers on airplanes with 1 week of notice to a mystery meeting. So. Stunning, like I said, in retrospect. So we revved the plan again, decided that we would tell everybody up front, and then get a commitment to get people to Mountain View. And the idea there, of course, was that we were going to get every individual company under NDA. Well, for a variety of reasons, that wasn't going to work. How much time did we kill that week?
Oh, I mean, we were working all the time just on trying to get, just discussing NDA issues, for 6 solid days. And, that wasn't the most fun part of it. And then we started to figure out, even if we personally sign NDAs with all of these companies and we get them all in a room together, they're not going to have NDAs with each other. So they're not going to be able to talk with each other, and it would be an N-squared problem.
The whole thing was just an insane experience. And believe me, on more than one occasion, we were incredibly tempted to abandon the NDA idea, but we ultimately never did, because we had some help finally from iCazi and Google and a couple of others that had